Good evening, everyone. My name is Unnati and welcome to International Education Week as we begin our programming with USIEF Kolkata. I would like to introduce you to our session, very exciting session called Global Community at US Universities Classroom and Beyond. And today we are joined by some very interesting panelists who will tell you about what it is like to be a college student in the United States. Before I begin my presentation or we begin interacting with you, I would like to tell you a little bit more about Education USA. If you haven't heard of us till now, we are a government-supported organization that is the official source of information for higher education in the US. We have many centers worldwide in many countries around the world, and we have 7 centers in India, and Kolkata is a center that is responsible for eastern states as well as northeastern states. But if you are someone who belongs to a different center, you can always stay in touch with us or them to get the correct information and the resources that you require to apply for higher education in the US. This presentation is more geared towards high school students and their parents as well as school counselors. Although if you are a master's or a PhD applicant, we will not turn you away. So you're most welcome to come and interact with us. So let me quickly introduce you to to all of our very fun panelists. First, we have Joy, who has just completed her MA in Applied Psychology in Mental Health at University of College of Cork in Ireland. She completed her undergraduate from the College of Wooster, Ohio, and is here to share her perspective as a Thai student in the United States in today's panel. We also have Julianna, and she goes by she, her, and hers pronouns. She is a current junior at Wellesley College and is double majoring in neuroscience and philosophy, which I just think are two absolutely wonderful majors. She calls Mexico City her home, but she is half Mexican and half British. At Wellesley, she's involved in the Honor Code Council, which is like a mini judicial system for the community, as well as mock trial team. So she is also a fellow at the College Albright Institute and has conducted research on biosynthetic technology in MIT's Fluid Interface Lab. She is unsure of where exactly the next few years will take her, but she hopes to pursue a career in law, which focuses on the intersection between health accessibility and migrant rights. So we can already see an interlink between our first 2 panelists. I would also like to introduce you to Caroline. She is a Master of Public Affairs candidate at the University of Texas Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs in Austin, Texas. After graduating from Texas Christian University in 2019, with her bachelor's degree in Bachelor's of Science in Political Science and Graphic Design, she actually came to be a Fulbright Nehru English teaching assistant with Sarda Vidya Bhavan's Girls Government School in Kolkata, India. So we have met last year, and she's absolutely a wonderful panelist, and I'm so excited to have her here. The next panelist is David. He is a law student at NYU Law School and hopes to use his law degree to assist low-income New Yorkers. After completing his undergraduate studies at Columbia University, David spent an incredible year living and teaching in Kolkata. So he was also a Fulbright alum. He was visiting Chilean public schools, teaching them about indigenous Chilean communities. And after spending his time over there, he wants to use his same training in learning, in teaching worldwide to help New Yorkers on government assistance for jobs and research unemployment issues. So he has returned to Kolkata again 2 times since his Fulbright grant and hopes to keep visiting his second home. The 5th panelist is Samara. She's a global citizen, and although born in Iraq, she lives in Atlanta, Georgia. She's currently a pharmacist technician and is a graduate from the College of Wooster, starting to look for a possible career in pharmacy. Her goal is to receive a PhD in pharmaceuticals, and she would like to use her experience in sciences and research skills to examine and improve the pharmaceutical industry that today the health practices in this field offers. So she is a very dear friend of mine from the College of Wooster. We studied together. So she's here to help you understand the Middle Eastern perspective, as well as what it means to be a global citizen in the United States. And lastly, you have me. So as I said, I'm an Education USA advisor from Kolkata, India. After studying from La Martiniere for Girls School over here, I went on to be a College of Wooster student, double majoring in business economics and psychology. I used my OPT work visa, which is an extension of your student visa, to work in Chicago before I took on this role to help all of you realize similar dreams in the US. Without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists to talk a little bit more about their favorite experiences on campus. So this webinar is geared towards telling you more about what it means to have a global community in the US. If you've ever attended any of my webinars or any of our other Education USA webinars, you will know that we always emphasize this fact that there's this cultural diversity, which is very, very respected in US universities. The classrooms are intentionally diverse, the campus is intentionally diverse. So today I wanted to simulate in front of you this experience of what it means to converse with different people from different cultures in a US classroom. So this is an attempt to do that, and I hope you really enjoy today's webinar. So I would like to first invite Caroline to put on her camera and tell us more about her cultural experiences on campus, as well as how it helped develop her into a global citizen outside of campus. So over to you, Caroline.
All right. I am so excited to be able to talk to y'all all this evening. For you, it is morning where I am. But just a little bit about me. Like Unnati said, I went to school in Texas, and you may not think of Texas when you think of a global community, but that was one of my favorite, well, my favorite part of my undergraduate degree for sure was getting the experience and the opportunity to create and become a part of that global community through travel, through different speakers and organizations and things. And so for me, what that looked like was I studied political science, and through that, I studied anti-human trafficking. And so I was a part of a group that had meetings on campus. And through that, I got to meet so many different students. And we had a lot of international students that would join us too. And we would meet and come up with different events to host, watch movie screenings. We would have pancake rallies where we would cook pancakes and then invite people to come eat them together and talk about different things. And through that, I also got the chance to travel to India for the first time. And that was really, I think, when my global community was born. So from that first trip, I made some incredible friends. I met some incredible people. And that is the picture on the left of my screen. I'm not sure if it is for you guys, in front of the Taj Mahal with some fellow students from TCU. And on the right side is another chance that I had to return back to India. And that time I got to interact with college students from all over South and Southeast Asia as part of a global conference on anti-trafficking. So I would say those experiences were unique to my university and not something I ever knew about going in. So I would encourage all of y'all to just seek out opportunities because they exist on every college campus, and you will meet so many people that are passionate about developing and contributing to a global community and want to include you in that, and they're already in pursuit of that at these universities. And we can go to the next slide. Great. So then, like Unnati said, I had the incredible opportunity to spend a year up until this past March, actually, in Kolkata, working with some of these fantastic people that are on this panel somewhere. But what that also looked like for me was I wanted to not only be able to participate in my school as a different part of the global community, but also encourage my students to dream big and seek out opportunities in their global community. So I guess I want to encourage all of you to apply for things, put yourself out there. You have such an incredible resource in this office, and they want to cheer you on and be there for you every step of the way. And it is so exciting when you do get to leave and go to university. So I look forward to talking with you all a little bit more in this session, and I think that's all I have to share.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for that wonderful display of affection towards your international experience on campus as well as off campus. And I'm sure our participants would love to interact with you during the debate round. So if anyone has, during this entire presentation, any questions or anything they would like to ask the panelists, go ahead and type in the chat box anything you would like to say, and we will have a very interactive debate experience towards the end of this presentation. So now I would like to invite another friend of mine, Nishapar, to talk about her experience as a Thai student on a US campus. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Joy. Thank you for the introduction, Unnati. You'll be hearing a little bit about my college today. We have a few panelists here together. So as mentioned, I went to a small liberal arts college in Ohio for my undergraduate degree. And I'll be sharing today the perspective of a Southeast Asian international student who attended university there. So the image we have here in my photo is one of my favorite programs that I participated in college, and it was something called the Intercultural Partnership Program. I believe it started in Virginia, but gained some steam around 2016. And what the program does is it pairs you up with somebody from the US, whether that is from the state you're studying at or whether they came in from another state. You get paired up based on your interests, and you're asked to spend about 2 hours a week together, discussing interests, sharing hobbies, and maybe going out and doing fun activities together. So what me and my partner did, coming from Thailand, I was paired with somebody from Columbus, Ohio. And she had never traveled before, and I had never heard very much about Ohio coming in. So we shared a lot about different experiences we had in high school, and then the different classes we were taking, and then how our different majors overlapped and shared interest. And we met weekly for coffee, and that's how I had my first intercultural experience in college. And all this, of course, was supported by my university. All I had to do was be open to going to events and hearing about and engaging with news from the career services and from the international office. As an international student, the moment you set foot on campus, you're instantly added to the mailing list and you get activities and different events. As an alumni, I would encourage you to be active, especially during your freshman year, your first year in college, in attending these events and being open to new experiences, especially in the beginning. So the pictures here is when we went to the Cleveland Cavaliers game in Ohio, which was one of the events that they took us out to with our partners. And we can move on to the next slide now. Okay, so then as a Thai student, I naturally also engaged with international office activities. So I joined a club called Southeast Asia United States. And what this club did was we engage with educating our faculty, staff, and our fellow students about bridging different interests and how we could collaborate to build projects together from different communities and from different groups. So one of my favorite events was a tea ceremony event where we collaborated with the different clubs there, the Japanese Students Club, the Vietnamese Student Club, the Burmese students, and we taught our peers and faculty how different tea is brewed and how, when, and what events and what holiday seasons we would drink each type of tea. And we also did more widespread events such as food festivals and things like. I think the important thing to note with that as an international student is you'll be able to revisit the fun events that you had in your home country while you're in the US as well. So you're not entirely cut off from all the unique things from your childhood, and you won't get too homesick while you're studying abroad. But it's important to keep an open mind to learning as much as you can as an international student from the different cultures and different peers there, and inviting even people who themselves may not know that they'd be interested in these things to attend with you, even just to learn about something new that in itself is part of the reason why you go to study in the US. So I would encourage you to have the same flexibility and open mind that you would expect to get from your university immediately going into your university. That being said, I look forward to answering more specific questions anybody may have as we go on with this event today. Okay, dropping back to you.
Thank you so much, Joy, for that wonderful experience that you shared about being on the College of Wooster and having these little ceremonies and these little traditions that really kept you grounded to your home culture, as well as helping someone else see the culture. So not only just experiencing it yourself, but also helping other people get involved in that culture. And I think that's so important because when you are an international student on a US campus, without saying it, you somehow become a cultural ambassador. And I think that's very important to know how you are representing your culture and teaching other people about it. So with that being said, I would like to invite Julianna on camera and to talk about her experience as a Mexican English student at Wellesley.
Thank you so much for the intro. So this basically, my aim through this talk is to give you both an idea of what it's like to be an international student in the US, but also kind of a current perspective of what everything going on with COVID is kind of how impacting your studies and how you can still stay connected to your community on campus and like your culture at a broader level throughout that. So a bit about me. I chose these two pictures to kind of show like the more serious side, which is the one on the left, and then the sillier side of college, which we'll get more into in a sec. But I'm currently a junior at Wellesley College, and this college is pretty small. It's a liberal arts college about 30 minutes outside of Boston, and it is a historically women's college. So this means that for the most part, our students are anything but cisgender men. And with that, we can pass to the next slide to talk a bit about some more experiences that are common to attending this college. So I chose to take a whole bunch of survey pictures and kind of share the experience in different components, starting with the national perspective. So while I am half British, I don't really have any particular connections to the British side of my identity, and I'm much more strongly tied to the Mexican side. And I think what both Unnati and Joy just said about being an ambassador for your culture is really important to highlight. Because as you can see in the picture on the right, the biggest one, like, yes, I have dragged multiple of my friends to Mexican restaurants in an attempt to both reconnect myself, but also share something that's really grounding for me, you know? And so I think a lot of the time you'll have these experiences as an international student where you feel homesick, because it's normal. Like in your case, you'll have moved halfway across the world. You'll be in a completely different time zone. Chances are like people won't speak your native language. And so finding places where you can really feel at home is going to be really important. For me, those places are two of the ones pictured in like these multiple pictures. So for instance, the one with the big group on the right is an amazing Mexican restaurant that I found and like literally, as I said, took so many of my friends to during a mock trial competition. And then another one, so the picture in the square of 4 pictures, the one on the bottom right, where my friend is kind of smiling and holding a plate like this. So this was during my first year and I was pretty homesick at the time, and it was a Mexican holiday. And this other Mexican student was like, come on, follow me. We're going to take the bus into Boston and we're going to do something really nice tonight. And so I blindly trusted her and I got into this bus and ended up in like, again, this really fantastic Mexican restaurant in the heart of Boston. And just being around people who are also Mexican, hearing Spanish, seeing Mexican brands, eating Mexican food makes you feel really connected. But I think it's also important to talk about culture as a whole and what it's really like stepping into like a US campus. So for instance, like again, the benefits of a small liberal arts college are that you really get integrated in the community so quickly. So the top left picture that I included is actually from my orientation, so 2 years ago now. And it's a yearly tradition that we have. So everyone dresses in the class color. My class color is purple. We all sit on top of a lawn that we have on campus and we take a picture with everyone in front. All the banners that you can see are the upper class students kind of like coming out, supporting us, cheering us on. But there are also other traditions, like for instance, if you go to a college in the Northeast, chances are you're going to have to encounter the horrible, horrible winters, which have their upsides in sledding. So this is another really big campus tradition we have. Whenever the first snow comes around, students just grab like cafeteria trays, they grab any sorts of sleds, and we all go and just like shred it through the night for as long as we can before we get really cold. But all of this is to say, yes, you are an international student, but at the same time, I think you find a balance very quickly between remaining connected to your cultural identity, but also being integrated into the larger US campus sphere. And I think the most important thing with that is to kind of recognize that, yes, at some point you're going to be expected to know things that are very US centric. Like for instance, everything that's been going on with the election recently, I've kind of had a stake in. So yeah, I've kept on top of that. But the really cool thing is that slowly through the friendships you form, the friends that you make also start to care about the news in India, for instance, the news in Mexico, the news in Thailand. And seeing those connections grow, the connections that you fostered, I think is the most satisfying part of this experience. So with that, I will wrap it up. And as everyone else has said, very much look forward to continue chatting and answering any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Julianna. That really drove home a lot of important points about being an international student on campus, including the fact that although you did study in a small liberal arts college, you still had access to other spaces which had like kind of remnants of your culture and where you could celebrate and be a part of who you were, as well as share that with other people. And definitely the whole point about assimilating with a different culture or learning more about the American culture is something that is really true to being an international student. With that, I would like to invite David to talk more about his experience on in the US campus. David, you are muted.
All right, now we're in business. Good morning, Kemonacho. I'm really excited to be here, and happy belated Diwali to those who celebrated, and I hope you all had a good puja season as well. This is the time of year I miss Kolkata the most, because I'm getting all sorts of messages from friends from my time there, and I am definitely homesick. I even have right now, actually, as we're going, I don't know if you can see this, it's a chai mix. It's the best I can do now that I'm no longer in India, but I'm thinking of India often, and it's just a pleasure and a real honor to be invited to this. So I am going to talk a little bit about my time at Columbia University here in New York City. I'm now also a student at NYU Law School. And I think that the global perspective or diversity at a US college campus kind of comes in a variety of different forms. So one is just the student body is very diverse. So at my school, it was actually 30% international, which is quite high. I think it has to do with it being in New York City, which is our most diverse city here in the United States. But the point being that any university you go to, there will likely be other Indian students there and other students from around the world. And you learn a lot from each other, I think, as some of the other panelists have said, just by talking, right? I think some of the major educational moments in my life just came from conversations with my peers. My senior year, I lived with one Mexican-American guy, one guy who was born in Colombia, one that was born in Cameroon, and then one that was born in another part of the United States, upstate New York, kind of in the countryside. And just the conversations that we had together as roommates about family, about religion, about values, about food, certainly taking each other to food restaurants food we grew up eating. Those were some of the most special times in college, and certainly some of the most meaningful. The other major way that I think US universities do a good job of bringing kind of global and diverse perspectives into your life is through extracurricular activities. So these photos here, I'm not a construction worker, though I did do that as summer jobs when I was in high school. But this is part of an organization I was a part of called Habitat for Humanity, and you might have heard of them. They are a global nonprofit, basically devoted to building affordable housing to folks in New York. So the idea is to actually construct low-income housing that less fortunate people can move into and live in. And so these are photos from those trips, and basically it meant every week I would be going out to parts of New York that I didn't even know, even though this is my hometown, to do construction and repairs. And you can even probably just see from the picture, it's people from different backgrounds, different, you know, their parents or grandparents may have been from different places, or they themselves might be international students. And I say that extracurriculars are a good way to bring in diversity, because some of them are specifically devoted to celebrating diversity, right? So at my university, there was a Hindu Students Association, a Muslim Students Association, that would put on performances for the rest of the university. So while the members might have been, say, Hindu, the participants were people like me that were just going to get some free samosas and enjoy beautiful dance and music. And you can imagine that across the board, right? So you know, getting to attend Chinese New Year celebrations and dumpling workshops, and I mean, you can name it, right? So extracurriculars are a great way, I think, for people who are from special communities to get to know each other and support each other, because the fact is also being an international student is at times stressful and overwhelming. So to have that community is wonderful, but it's also a chance for those groups to then share the things about their culture with others at the university. And I think those are some of the best learning experiences. You can also just go to the next slide too. I guess that's also an extracurricular activity, but I think just to give you a point. So this is a picture of a fraternity event. So just really quickly, just to give you a sense of how diverse this place is. So if you look at the very bottom, the guy who has a shirt with some text on it, that's Uday. He actually has family from Kolkata, which is wonderful. Behind him, you have Marwan, who's from Lebanon. Next to him, you have Stefan, who's from Haiti in the Caribbean. You have a few guys in the back that are from different parts of Europe. You have another friend of mine, Mateo, who's from Ecuador. So this is, again, my fraternity. It wasn't a group that was meant to necessarily celebrate any one particular group of people, but it just being around and making friends from other places is really the best way to know a culture. I mean, I think you can read all the books about India you want, but until you're actually there and you meet people and you're taken into their home, that's when you start to learn about a culture. It's through friendships. I've always felt that. So we have just through the students, extracurriculars, and then really quick, the two other things I want to say is location. This has already been mentioned by a number of the other panelists, but whatever American city or town you're in will offer its own opportunities to gain a more global perspective. Certainly here in New York, you have all the cultures of the world represented. And as a student, as a college student in New York, we really made the most of trying to devote one day a weekend to go to the Indonesian part of New York, where there are a lot of Indonesian folks, to eat food, to walk around, to take in the sights and smells. Or there's, you know, this for you guys may not be so interesting or exotic, but there's a large Bangladeshi community in New York City. There's Greek communities. There's all these cultures. So it's like if you come to the States and then you're lucky enough also, especially to be in a city, it's really you have access to the whole world at your fingertips. And the last thing is through classes. And we haven't really talked about academics, but I think that's one of the more interesting things. The menu of options at a US university really give you a huge opportunity to further explore diversity. If you look at like the transcript of, I'm sure Caroline or myself, like you'll find classes that aren't just specifically one major. I mean, I took classes on, because I'm very interested in the region, in South Asian texts, you know, and so I was reading all sorts of texts about South Asia, but there were classes, the same types of classes about African literature or South American Caribbean literature. So classes are obviously a huge opportunity to gain a global perspective, again, being with a really diverse group of people, talking about diverse subjects, but it's really become something I think in recent years US universities are really trying to do a better job of, is making sure that the syllabus, the reading list, includes men, women, folks of all ages, backgrounds, and so I think it's really an exciting opportunity to come to the States. I'm sure that the news in India portrays Americans as all sorts of things. It's probably all true. There are some pretty there's some folks here that I wish we could send off onto an island, But for the most part, I think you'll find a really welcoming and curious folks here in America. I really hope that you continue to consider it. And as Caroline said, you have an incredible group of people at the American Center and wherever you might be through USIEF, et cetera, who are there to help you. And we're also there to help you. If you have individual questions 3 months from now, I'm sure you can get our contact information. So with that, I'm done. Thanks so much, and happy to answer questions and be here.
Thank you so much, David, for that wonderful perspective of a domestic student and how your experience in the university helped you to become more globally conscious and interact with people from different cultures, and then in turn influenced your decisions to work around the world in different schools and take it back to your country to work on that in the legal system and, like, you know, be a law student and use your experiences for the betterment of different communities in New York. So thank you for sharing. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Samara, if she is here. Yes, Samara, you can just put on your camera. Great.
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to figure this out. Yep. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Samara. I was born in Iraq, and I left Iraq when I was 5 years and a half, and I moved to Jordan, right next door. And I lived there for 10 years, and then my family immigrated to the United States in 2009. My college experience is kind of different because I didn't actually go to the college that it was in my state. I actually joined in high school. The last 2 years of my high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, and so I did a lot of research on scholarships that are out there for me, especially that I know my parents went to colleges back home, but no one around me had the experience in my family of going into a college into the United States, so I had to do my research on my own. And so I was nominated for the Posse Scholarship, Posse Atlanta. And I'm sure if you end up going to colleges in the United States, hopefully you'll meet some Posse scholars. It's a national scholarship, and basically it's a full tuition scholarship, and they send you in a posse of 10 to a campus that's outside of your state. And so I came into campus with a group of friends and connections that I already made of 10 people. And so I already had that kind of posse, that supportive group. And so I went to the College of Wooster. I was at first shocked because it was like mostly rural, and there was not a lot of community of international students like it was in Atlanta, where I was residing. And so I had to find my own space, and so one of my goals was to find the international student community and join them and showcase the beautiful culture, in which I did by joining the International Educational Week organizing committee, and we did some culture show and some events. And then I don't know if you can go to the next slide, Unnati, for me, please. Yep. And so another thing that I did was at that time I was, so I'm a Muslim, and at that time I was practicing the hijab, which is the scarf women wear. And at that time it was just 2 students in the whole school that would wear it. And when she left, it was me by myself for a while. And then we had 1 more student after me. And so we asked a lot of questions, and it would be a lot of misconceptions about the Muslim community. And so I joined the Noor Club, and at that time it wasn't a very active club, and so I changed that. I hosted events to showcase holidays, to show art, and strengthen the few students that we had, though, who are Muslims, to have mosque trips and also connect to the community members, and so that we had that support. We created a safe space, such as like the prayer room and several other events like that. And so when I went to Wooster, they were telling me that I was actually the first Iraqi student that came to Wooster, and so I was able to hang my flag, or the flag ceremony. And so when I was told that, it kind of put a lot of pressure on me, because I wanted to show my origins, and at the same time, I wanted to find a community where I belonged on campus, and I did. But I didn't just stick to those comfortable bubbles. I actually got out of my comfort zone and joined other events, other clubs on campus. I joined a sorority. So I stepped out of my comfort zone, but my goal was, within these 4 years, my main effort was just on the international students and the Noor Club, the Muslim club. So that's basically how my college experience was. But right now I graduated, and I'm looking into a career possibly as a pharmacist or as a doctor. Right now I'm working as a certified pharmacy technician, and I'm still going to school for classes to help me study for the MCAT and the PCAT, because I'm still indecisive. And so that's where I am now. Yep. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Samara, for sharing your experience. And like I've already told all of you, Samara is also a dear friend of mine from the College of Wooster, and she was, in the truest sense, a cultural leader on campus. She really led a lot of initiatives. She actually also was the chair of International Education Week that we used to have at the College of Wooster. So we used to have a whole week planned of events where different cultures would showcase themselves through different activities. So she was definitely a leader in that as well. And yeah, thank you for sharing your experience, Samara, as both an international but also a domestic student, and about the Posse Scholarship, which, let me just emphasize for all of you, is a scholarship only available to US citizens. So it's not available for Indian students.
Or students that have green cards, yeah.
Go ahead, what were you saying, sorry?
I said, or students that have green cards, yeah.
Yes, green cards, okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So we will interact with Samara more in the debate round. With that, I would like to take back the panel to myself. So meet me. I would like to firstly begin by telling you a little bit about being an Indian student, especially someone from Kolkata, having gone to a high school over here, being sheltered all my life, living with my parents. Going to the US was definitely, there was a slight culture shock involved. It was after a very long time that I had to introduce myself again. No one knew. So in India, we go to high school, or we go to the same school since we are 3 years old. So I went to the same school since I was 3 years old till I was 18 years old. So everyone knew me, everyone knew who I was about, what my interests were, and things like that. There was no person who was not familiar with who I was. So when I went to college, the first thing that happened was the international student orientation. So before everyone comes on campus, all domestic students join. We have something known as the International Student Orientation, which is where I met Samara, which is where I met Joy for the first time. And it's a very important time when they make you understand the different resources there are for international students. So I had a lot of seniors who went to the College of Wooster who were also from Kolkata, from India, which made it very easy for me to have people who were similar to me. So I could have a touch point with these students, but I also had my own friend groups, which were consisting of international students as well as a lot of domestic students who joined our groups later. So a very great thing that I think I did as soon as I joined campus was I became involved in what was known as a South Asia committee. So from the freshman year itself, there was a position open for public affairs officer, and I jumped in as a freshman and became a part of that committee. So every week, for once a week, we would meet up in our little group of 4 to 5 like South Asian students who were trying to do events on campus or do things that made South Asian students feel at home. So that helped me stay connected, that okay, the whole week I would go and be myself, interact with with students who were from the US, or interact with students who were from different cultures. But at the end of the day, once a week, I could come back to something that was familiar to me, people who were familiar to me, and maintain that connection. There are a lot of people who may want to go to the US and forget their roots, or try to be completely like an American, and not even recognize people who are from their culture or from their ethnicity. And on the other hand, there may be people who may stick closer to their culture and identity, and they try to be more Indian or more South Asian, like try to wear kurtas on campus when you've never worn it back home. So there are different people who handle cultural situations differently, but I was very grateful that I was one which could have both, the best of both worlds. I could not only identify with my culture, but I could also learn about American culture and become more culturally aware of how to interact with people from other cultures. So these are two pictures that I have put up. One is our Holi celebration. So we had this big kind of lawn in front of one of our freshman dorms, where we would all go get very organic colors, and all of us, when it got a little warmer, obviously not at the time of Holi, we would play Holi not only amongst ourselves, but you can see there are a lot of other nationality students also having joined us over there. So this gives us two opportunities. One is not to miss our home culture and celebrate the festivals that are important to us, and secondly, teach our friends and peers about these cultures. I always made it a point that people who were close to me, students who were friends who I had made, I could tell them, not only tell them about my culture, but show them my culture through these different events that the college allocated, the budget that the college allocated to us to celebrate and showcase our different cultures. And it wasn't only money that was given to us for buying these colors to throw at each other. There was a fund allocated for food. So we would get the food that is associated with Holi. There is another picture which I'm realizing now is a little hazy, but it's a picture of us all on stage during a cultural show we had during International Education Week on campus, where different students from different clubs. So the one cultural club was South Asia Committee. So we had a Bollywood dance that we would do every year, and it was the biggest hit because we could not only spend time during practices with people from our culture, but also showcase that to other people. So like we've all been talking about, we unconsciously became an ambassador to our culture and were able to include other people into this culture. So I was a psychology student as well, similar to Joy, and there is this whole group mentality. And there was also a lot of cultural classes that they give you on campus, where they tell you the story of X's and O's, where different students from different outsiders assimilate into cultures in different ways. They either try to become more like what they already were, or they try to become more like the culture that they are becoming a part of to try to fit in. But I was happy to be a medium between both of those things, and now I feel like I'm an amalgamation of both of these cultures, and I carry it gracefully to help other students experience this nice marriage between these two cultures. So in the culture show, like I said, we showcased Hollywood culture. There was a Russian suite which put up different skits on, I remember Rapunzel was a very famous skit that they put up in Russian. There was one building which was dedicated to language learning. So there were different suites in a building called Loose Hall, where students from who spoke Chinese could be in the Chinese suites. People who spoke classical languages could be in the classical languages suite. Similarly, people who spoke French French could be in the French suite. So these were classes that, these were suites that were not allocated to international students per se, but they were allocated to students who were from that, who wanted to practice that language more than anything else. So those suites also put up different performances in these culture shows. Other pictures that I would like to show you are some pictures with some other panelists who are over here, as well as some ex-EducationUSA advisees. So on the picture on the left, you will see a little blurry, but that is me with a few of my friends, as well as Joy, in one of the Indian dinners. So like I said, I could share my food with, like just how Julianna said that she loved sharing her Mexican food and love for Mexican food with her friends. So it was very important for me to be able to share North Indian food with my friends. So we would have a dinner every semester. We would all chip in and pay for the dinner, and then order it from Cleveland or Columbus. And because Wooster was a small college town, again, a small liberal arts campus where we did not have access to all these foods, it was a special event for us. We all dressed up and enjoyed this food and shared it together and talked about what was our favorite and what was everyone else's favorite. Some other pictures you can see is the Diwali celebration. So on top right is a picture of me holding my fuljari, which just went off as soon as the picture was taken, and everyone's was still lit up. So we even had a few firecrackers that nothing that lifted off the ground, but we were able to do some sparklers, as well as a small puja ceremony and a presentation by a freshman about what Diwali is about and how it's celebrated. We also ordered food from outside to showcase this culture to everyone. And lastly, you can see my picture with Samara in our graduation day. So this just shows the longevity of our friendship, that these students, these friends will last with you over your lifetime. Like I can proudly say that Samara and Joy are some of my closest friends, and similar to them, I also have so many other friends from different cultures who, because we were able to break down that barrier of groupism, right? Like if you always think that you belong to one group and someone else belongs to the other group, you will never be able to break down stereotypes. You'll never be able to break down cliques or forget how human beings are just human beings, unless you live with them, unless you grow with them. So if you have other things in common, when you're living in this global community, like what this webinar is called, when you're living in this global community and learning with these peers, going through life with these peers, growing up, especially in the 4 years long bachelor's degree, which is giving you so much more time than a 2-year master's degree or anything else, you are intentionally becoming a global citizen. You're intentionally learning how to experience problems that other communities have. Like Julianna said, that you're learning about politics, you're learning about how to keep up with the news in other countries. Like I have so much more knowledge about what goes on in the countries where my friends live now than before my college experience. And just like Caroline and David also said, it's a great opportunity for international presence on campus, to even for domestic students to learn more about international students from first-hand experience. We all have different perceptions of other cultures through media, through like shows we watch, through documentaries that are made, but it's a completely different experience living and breathing in that cultural community and diverse community. I remember the first thing, going back to international orientation, or actually after that, there was a domestic orientation where all the other students joined in as well. The dean of students told us that this is probably the most diverse community you'll ever live in your entire life. After this, you may go back to your neighborhoods, which will have students from mainly where you are from, but this is probably the most diverse experience you'll have in your entire life. So having said that, I would invite you to experience this global community, to experience this whole interaction with different students from different backgrounds in our next part of this process. And do continue typing into the chat box or the questions tab any questions you have about this global community and how you can be an international student on a US campus. So we'll go to the next part of our presentation. So this was the only organized part of our presentation, and now we'll have a little debate to give you an idea of what it means like to have a conversation across cultures. So I'm going to throw it open to the audience. I have 4 topics for you. So the first topic is an ideal high school education system. The second topic is cultural assimilation versus cultural appropriation. The third topic is breaking the cliques, how to socialize in college. And the fourth topic is contributing to my home community. So I would invite you to type in which out of these topics would you like us to discuss in the next, I'll give you around 5 minutes. So in any chat box or any questions tab, you can put in your name as well as which topic 1, 2, 3, or 4 that you would like us to discuss. And the majority, whichever gets the majority votes, we will discuss that topic. Okay, I have a few votes for point number 3. Any more people? Come on, type, don't be shy because you will also want to contribute to this debate. Yes, I'm getting a lot of 3s, so everyone is very interested in how to socialize in college. Okay, I'm getting a few 2s as well as 1. I got 1 vote for 1 and 1 vote for 2, and I got another vote for 3. Okay, so panelists, begin thinking about topics for 3. Let's see what everyone else says. Come on, type in quickly. We don't have all day. Okay, 3, again 3. One. So I have 2 votes for 1 and many votes for 3. Any more? We'll wait for another few seconds and then we will, otherwise we will continue with topic 3. Another vote for 3. Okay, so without further ado, panelists, let's all put on our video cameras. I'm going to discontinue the presentation for some time. Great, my camera is back. And let's all come back on camera. And so did you, I'll read out the topic once more. Great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so the topic is breaking the cliques, how to socialize on campus. So let's all talk a little bit. Let's go reverse in order of presentation, barring me, about a little bit about how you experience cliques on campus. So everyone has this idea that campus will be something like High School Musical, at least when we were going on campus, that's what we thought. But it wasn't like that. And so what cliques did you experience and how did you kind of break them, not only from your culture, but from other cultures as well? So let's go from Samara. And we can all comment on what we all say after they complete speaking. And audience, you can also type in anything you want to interact with us in the chat box. Go ahead, Samara. Tell us a little bit more about this topic.
So I don't think I experienced much of the cliques because I didn't necessarily just join one community and that's it. So as I said, I came in, I have a diverse posse with me, and they all had different areas they were interested in. And so every time I would hang out with them, they'll introduce me to some more people. And then I was lucky enough to join a sorority on campus, so that kind of opened more doors for me. And then, the international students that I was friends with, they weren't really just, focused on one group either. They were also communicating with other people. And the campus that I went to was a small campus, so kind of everybody knew each other. So I didn't really feel that I was in a part of a clique. I guess maybe sometimes I put myself in the Noor clique, but we weren't even hanging out, like in the cafeteria, sitting by ourselves. No one can join us. No, not like that. And so I didn't really experience that. So I don't have any advice. I guess maybe because I was a part of so many things and I was I was always introduced to other people that maybe that's an advice I can give. But other than that, I have no input on this.
Yeah, but I think, Samara, it also helps that you joined a sorority, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about joining a sorority, which may not have been very similar to your Noor or your Posse cultures, you know?
Yeah, it was different, and I didn't think they will accept me because I was like very, you know, very religious. I don't drink, I don't like to party, and so they opened their arms for me, and it was just like more about women empowerment. And I kind of missed having sisters. Like I have two sisters, and so when I went to campus, I was like constantly missing my sisters and missing that like strong women connection. And so they opened their doors for me, and they were very kind, and it's just it helped increase my confidence. It helped increase you know, strength and bonds. And also they had a lot of connections and networks because like our alumni are in different parts of the country, and they're doing big things. And so every time I wanted to network and reach out to someone, I had that opportunity to do so. And so if you want to join a sorority, I highly recommend it. It's not what everybody thinks, like on the movies and stereotypes. It's not all the same, but you'll have that great, you know, sister bond or brother bond. So for fraternities, but yeah.
Great. So just adding a little bit to that, I know David can also talk to that point. Maybe he can go next and begin by introducing what Greek life even means, because some of our audience may not know what is Greek life and how it works on campus. So you can respond to this question as well as talk a little bit more about Greek life.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, good. So Greek life is, I would say, it depends on what campus you're on. Some universities don't have it, but at this point, I think many universities do. At my university, there were about 30% of the students were in a Greek life organization, and basically they are usually, but not always, split based on gender. So usually it's a all men organization or all women organization, though certainly now at my university there are some that are mixed, which is great. I think it's kind of fitting of the times we're in now. But basically it's an opportunity to, one, socialize. So for example, my fraternity had like social events that we would have, like events where we would either do a service outing with a sorority or even another fraternity. There was actually a physical house that our fraternity had, which again depends on where you are, but often there's actually like a physical house where some members of the fraternity or sorority will live. And even at some schools, they have kitchens and whole like supporting staff. It depends. We were in New York, so our house was pretty small, but in some more rural areas, it's like a huge house that you can hang out in. And even if you don't live there, you can visit there. But usually these organizations are about social events and about service. Those are kind of the two things. And in addition, there's a really strong like alumni component. People are very proud, like they're proud to have gone to their university. They're very proud to have gone to their fraternity. So there would be events. And then for special events that would happen, like we had a American football team at my university, and for like once or twice a year for big games, there would be a specific large parties, etc. But I think it's going to the question, which was about fighting against cliques. I think it's a good way. Of course, like the fraternity itself becomes like a kind of one entity, but people are coming from different parts and have different majors. So you're not just with, you know, students that are studying biology, but now you're students that are studying all different subjects. I'll just say this though, I think, and it's implicit in what you've heard some of the people say, but it really takes, there's the expression in the US, like it takes two to tango, like two people to dance this one dance, the tango. And it definitely will take that if you come to university in the States. You'll have to, the university itself, one, during orientation, for example, They'll have all sorts of orientation activities for you to meet different people from different backgrounds and different kind of corners of the university. A lot of them do outdoor trips, which sounds very scary, but is really a great time, and I really recommend it. So before I even started my first class at Columbia, I spent 4 days like hiking and being in the woods and in tents with people I didn't know at all, which I think is a great example. Columbia gave the opportunity for people to do that. And it was on me to actually take advantage of it. I remember it was the last 2 minutes before the deadline to apply to do this outdoor program. I finally hit the button. Like, I had never camped once in my life. But I was like, I have to do this. I have to put myself out there. And I was rewarded. I met my best friend in the world on that trip in the woods. So whenever anyone asks, like, how did you guys meet? We say, like, we met in the woods. And people are like, oh, what does that mean? But we did. We met in the woods. And so what I would say is it will take a lot of energy. And I'm not saying this is easy. It will take a lot of energy, and it will take a lot of kind of risk taking to say, I'm going to try to join a dance club even though I don't know this type of dance, right? Or I'm going to put myself forward and go into a new space that I'm not as familiar with, and then you'll be rewarded, right? Like, there'll be opportunities. I guarantee there'll be opportunities, but it's on you, and it's not easy at first. It's a skill. Just like when I first got to Kolkata, it was like, do I feel comfortable just walking into this temple or walking to this part of town? You just have to kind of get out and do it, and it's a skill you'll develop over time too. Like, I think it doesn't all have to be done in the first month. I'm sure some of the folks who are international students can talk to this, but usually you kind of word of mouth. You meet a friend who says, "Oh, come to this thing," and so it will happen to you. But I do think that Greek life, as we call it, is potentially a good place to be able to meet other people.
Yeah, and David, I would also like to ask you another question in relation to that. So you had this experience in Colombia where you were able to be a part of an international community. So when you came back, like when you were an international student, did some of this experience kind of help you in understanding an international student's perspective, or did it train you in some ways to be, I guess, like do your fellowship opportunities around the world that you did after this?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think that for me, as I had lived abroad when I was younger too, so I always, I think, had a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for folks that are somewhere that isn't home. It's certainly challenging, both missing people and places and food that you can't get a hold of, as well as like America is a big confusing place. I mean, just like arriving in India and you're now part of a culture that has a history of 5,000 plus years and has all of these, has just such a rich culture musically, politically, food wise, that it's kind of can just be overwhelming, and you're like worried that you're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So I don't know. I think now, having lived abroad longer, I'm now in university, I said again, or law school, and I think I definitely try to go out of my way, especially in this time of COVID. Like, we have some international students at my school, and they've now arrived. And unfortunately, during COVID, as you guys know, we have to do social distancing. You can't really go around meeting people. So I've really tried to reach out to the international students at my law school and take them to places I like in New York, because I think my international experience, as you said, has really just given me a greater appreciation for how challenging it can be to be an international student. Though I think the rewards certainly outweigh the challenge. But yeah, I think I try to keep an eye out for people more.
Yeah, that's amazing. Those are amazing tips to know about your experience on how to break cliques. And I know there's this movie that I often watch. It's called I think it's called I Bought a Zoo or something, and it just talks about 20 seconds of incredible courage. And I just always think back to that whenever I'm about to do something that's very scary. And I think that's very important, is to have confidence and not worry too much. Like, even for me as well, I did have a lot of stereotypes in my mind about American culture, about Iraqi culture, about Thai culture. But when my friends were so open to tell me more about it. So if you have any questions, any doubts, just ask people and they'll be more than happy to tell you more about their cultures. And yeah, definitely have confidence and don't fall into imposter syndrome in which you think that you don't belong in a certain place. So that's something that's very common that often happened to me when I felt that I don't deserve this. This is just too good to be true. I don't deserve to be here. I don't belong here, you know. So just kind of grab your seat on the table and go for it, you know, like just go approach people, talk to people, have that confidence to continue conversing, because through conversations is how we learn and how we grow. So in COVID, especially when people are doing online classes, are only interacting through video chats, maybe doing social distancing, this is the best way. Just hit up someone on FaceTime, be like, okay, we're going to just talk about your day today. So these informal conversations are so important. That we will learn and grow through this. And I know it will definitely, this experience of doing your bachelor's in the US will definitely train you for your life ahead. Like all of our panelists, most of our panelists are in master's programs right now, and they're carrying this, and Julianna is in her bachelor's still, but we're all carrying this information onto our current experiences of wherever we are working or studying. So with that, I would like to now hand it over to Julianna to talk about this topic and how you've experienced it, especially with some of those strong women bonds that Samara was talking about, you know, like how does this sense of belongingness help?
I think the best piece of advice I could give all of you when looking at which college it is you want to attend for undergrad is to think beyond the namesake of the institution. It's an easy pitfall to think that XYZ name is going to open like XYZ opportunities for you, but I think it's just as important, if not more, to really sit down and consider whether you can imagine a life for yourself at the place that you're thinking of attending for the next 4 years. And I think on that line, for instance, like so much of what we've been talking about today in terms of social cliques and feeling like you don't fit in, feeling lonely, feeling isolated, like I didn't have to go through any of that just because the settings and the support system that the college already had in place made it such an easy and smooth transition. That's not to say that there weren't challenges. There definitely were, like adjusting to the US. It is a strange place. Honestly, there's a lot going on at all different points in time. And it does take a lot to adapt and adjust. But for instance, like I found myself naturally making friends without necessarily having to go out of my way and like seek people out. For instance, some of the best friends I made were when I took chemistry classes that I really struggled through, and I would sit there in a lecture with something passing like entirely over my head, not quite yet feeling like super comfortable enough with the professor to raise my hand. So instead just turning to the person next to me and being like, hey, do you have any idea what's going on? And then being like, no, absolutely not. So then we just like study and get to know each other, grab coffee and so on. Boom, there you have it, a nice friendship. Alternatively, with roommates and residential life, I think if you're a person that thinks you would enjoy this, definitely research the residential life of your college. I ended up being best friends with my roommate. Like we have traveled together. We've both gone to Mexico together. She's Mexican American. We have gone surfing together. Like we've done all of these really cool things on the basis of that friendship that, again, it takes time and effort to develop. So while you are handed these things and these opportunities, I think that, as David said, you do have to take it upon yourself to kind of enter into the right spirit and mindset. And the last thing that I want to touch on is actually imposter syndrome, because I think it's an incredibly important thing to address, especially for those of you in the audience who are women, for those of you who are women of color, for those of you who, for instance, may be the first in your family attending college or university. These are things that along the course of your education, like, are probably going to come up, unfortunately, just because of the way that systems are structured. But I think it's really important to mention that you have this fantastic network here with Unnati and all the other advisors that you should definitely make use of, but also check the resources that different institutions have. So for instance, at Wellesley College, we have a network for first generation students who are the first in their family to pursue a college education. We have specific cultural groups that provide so much support. For instance, we have Al-Muslimat for Muslim students. We have different South Asian student organizations. And these are all the places in which, again, you're going to build those networks that are going to be the ones that support you through the most difficult days. And I'd be lying if I said that like we all haven't had a point when you get a test back or like you're this close to like not doing particularly well on a class. And at the end of the day, it's those peers who sit you down and hold your hand and say, okay, what do we have to do to get you through this? What do you have to do to make work for it? That are going to get you to like push through and get you to the other side of whatever challenge it is that you're being faced with. So again, just really think about whether or not the community that you're thinking of applying to is one for you. And if it doesn't feel right, that is fine. Don't force it. I'm sure you will find another place that is best suited. And the last piece of advice is, in order to figure that out, reach out to alums. They are the best people to give you like a feel for what that campus will be like. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Julianna. Those were great pieces of advice. And I completely feel like there's so many resources on campus to help students, if they are from a minority group, whatever it be, even if they're not an international student, to help them through fitting in, or not even fitting in, but also standing out in some ways. I don't know like how that works out, but definitely not feeling isolated on campus. And like we've mentioned that it is about your confidence. You have to be proactive. There won't be a homeroom teacher, there won't be a class teacher telling you that, hey, you're looking so sad today, come, let's talk. It won't happen like that. You will have to be the one looking out and seeking these resources. It's very important for you to be proactive and making use of these resources. So definitely try to do that. And with that, I would like to also hand it over to Joy to tell us more, a little bit more about what you experienced on campus and how did you socialize?
Yeah, so I think speaking to the heart of this question about cliques, I think it should be just made very clear that once you leave high school, cliques becomes less of a problem. It really does. Especially when you get to college, you'll notice that everybody is just treading water. Everyone is coming in as like a blank slate. Everybody's like, will you be my friends? So it's actually, you're not alone when you're uncomfortable and scared when you get to college. And that in itself makes it very easy to strike up a conversation. Everybody's very open to making friends and creating their own social group at the very beginning of college all the way to the end. You'll find seniors who are surprised that they get on very well with first years. You'll find as a sophomore that you can lead someone who's a year younger than you and you can have good conversation with them. I think at the end of the day, you'll find it a lot easier once you actually get there. And I think Julianna covered a lot of like the key points with college, especially considering if you're in high school and you're tuning in, considering whether you want to go to a residential university, which means that you're living on campus and you're walking to class in like 10 minutes. Or if you want to go to a larger university, which some of our panelists went to or are currently near or living in a town that has a university that's a city college. Those are very different atmospheres and you'll get a very different environment from that. I did my undergrad in the same small liberal arts college that the other like a few of these panelists went to, and I found it really nice because all I wanted to do as an undergraduate was study. And I wanted to research and I wanted to dive really deeply into a topic, and I found that was a lot easier in the smaller, more close-knit university, and then a small close-knit college. And then I came, now in my master's, I did a university program. So now I'm in a program with over 6,000 students versus the 2,000 students I did my undergrad in. So it's important to know what you want to go into and what you want to experience out of your education as an undergrad, because that's a key identity forming time. And there is no wrong answer. Like it's really hard to go wrong with who you hang out with and what you choose to do. It's just check all your options. The US has a ton and it can be overwhelming, but looking into it will be very helpful, and reaching out to alumni is definitely a very good piece of advice.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy, for that really heartwarming piece of advice. And it's definitely very important to choose the correct university. If you've been to any EducationUSA webinars, you'll learn about the different number of universities that are on campus, like, in the US, and you can always stay in touch with us. We have access to all these alums. We have access to, like many university representatives who are in admissions to tell you more about how to choose a university for you. And like Joy and Juliana have mentioned, you can always transfer. If you do not fit into a university, you're not locked in stone over there. It's not a jail, you can always look into a university even midway. It's never too late to transfer into a university that you fit in. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you feel like you've chosen the wrong university, it's always possible you can transfer and go into a different university that's a better fit for you. And that's why we are putting so much emphasis all the time on finding the best fit for you, because where you are successful is going to be so different than where someone else is successful. So with that, I would also like to invite Caroline to now talk about her experience, maybe a little bit, being from a bigger university campus and now even going to a bigger university. How did you experience, I guess, as an American student, going from a high school to a university, these cliques, and how did you socialize?
Yeah, I mean, all of y'all have brought up all of the points. But I think in my experience, you know, I grew up in kind of a small town, and I went to a school that was outside of my community and a pretty good ways away from my family, and I didn't really know anyone going into my first year. And I'm not sure who said this earlier, but everyone is feeling the same way. Everyone is just trying to figure it out. No one knows what they're doing when they get to college, and everyone's going to act like they do. And I'm dealing with this right now in my master's degree, where I feel like I have a little bit of imposter syndrome because, you know, you're meeting everyone on Zoom, and I don't really know many people here either. It's in a new city and a new community. And I would just encourage you to really lean into of course, your extracurriculars, and those are phenomenal, but also your academic community. And I think that being able to communicate with people who have similar interests and goals, and, you know, get really excited about the same pieces of literature that you do or things like that, can be so can just make such wonderful friendships and connections. And that has been something that has been so fun in graduate school, is being virtually surrounded by a community of people that is interested in the same things that I am. And it's given me the courage to send someone, you know, an email that says, "Hi, would you like to Zoom and talk about this?" And it is a little strange and odd in this current climate, but, you know, it's not going to be this way forever. And it just goes to show that you have to be resilient. You have to be willing to challenge yourself. And just really, I think the biggest thing is to remember that everyone is in the same boat. Everyone wants to make friends, and no one is like sitting there going like, "Oh, I have all my friends, I have this all figured out." Everyone is wanting to build that community, and so you just have to be willing to put yourself out there. It might be uncomfortable sometimes, it will be uncomfortable sometimes, but it will be totally worth it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's my advice.
That's great to know about your transition and how you were putting yourself out there, and right, like sending these emails. Maybe out of 5 you got 1 reply or 2 replies of people who are willing to, who do want to Zoom and do want to build those connections, because like we all have been in this boat for the first time, right? Everyone goes to college for the first time together. It's not different, like you are all on the same playing field. So it's very important for us to know that. And I can share a little bit now about my experience. So being from La Martiniere for Girls in Kolkata, it's an all-girls school. So I haven't technically, I never interacted with, so I grew up in the same school since I was 3 years old. So I was at the top of the food chain, right? I was like leading clubs. I was part of the editorial board. I was a prefect, which is like a big thing in India. So I had a lot of leadership positions. I had a lot of people who knew me, and then suddenly I found myself in the middle of nowhere. Like Wooster, Ohio is literally in the middle of nowhere. But I intentionally chose a campus life, right? So like, let's go first talk about the point that Joy had made, that choosing, or Julianna also made, choosing the correct campus for you. So when I was researching colleges, I had this in my mind that I don't want to be a part of a campus where someone drives into campus and leaves, right? People who commute to, because I want everyone to be in the same playing field. I want a campus life. I want a residential life where everyone is away from home and living together. So I consciously chose campuses which were more rural, which were more smaller in size, so that I had that experience, because in my mind I had decided that, okay, this is probably where I will succeed. need. I do better with more intimate groups. I am an introvert by nature, or I at least was more introverted than I am right now. When I went into college, and I was this very shy person who then first stuck to what is familiar to me. So what did I stick to? I stuck to the international students, or students who were from Kolkata, right? Like they were my first points of contact when I went on campus, and then I grew my confidence. Like there were a lot of people with different personalities than me who were also Indian who came on campus. There was one girl who was very extroverted, and she would sit in the lounge of her freshman dorm and say hi to everyone who came in. So her goal was that in the first week, make as many friends as you can. And I was just not that person. It took me time to grow my confidence and be open to even treating boys as peers. That was the drastic change for me, right? Like treating someone from the different, gender, because it was an all girls, one gender school, to be able to treat them as peers, as equals to me. So this was also something that I learned through the years. I grew with the friends I had, the interactions I had, and with definitely, David said, it takes two to tango. Definitely the domestic students were very open to meeting international students, right? Like we logically do not belong to any cliques. Even if there are cliques in high school, there's no real designation to the social cycle, to the thing to you, right? Like you are brought in as someone who is interesting, and people want to talk to you, they want to know more about you, include you. So like it's important not to have that imposter syndrome and feel like you don't belong. So that took me time to grow out of. I would say by sophomore year I had a good group of friends, and that's because I did a lot of things that made me feel a sense of belonging. Like that we had a dinner circle, we would eat. Like I would hate eating alone. That was one thing that I hated doing, because at home you always ate with your family, and there was someone sitting near you when they ate with you, and I felt so insulted when everyone had different schedules and you had to go to the dining hall and eat on your own. So we made a group where my friend took me to a group, in fact, which Joy was also part of, where we all ate dinner at 5 o'clock every day. So that was our thing, that at 5 or 6, we had a Facebook group, and all we did was eat dinner together from freshman year to senior year. And the friendships grew. We talked about life, we talked about things. And that's one point of friendship that I made. Another place where I made friends was the math center. So we would all go quarrel over tough like problems. I never wanted to take math ever, but I did for the first 2 years try it. And then I dropped it because I ended up doing psychology and business econ instead. Yeah, so that was another point of contact, definitely in the classroom, right? Like, so we had this very tough econ professor called Professor Molodina, and he would always wear a bow tie, and we just all very fondly remember him. But he was a very tough professor, and we had a group of students who became so close to each other getting through his classes. So we would call ourselves the Molodina survivors, and we've told him this as well. So these kind of obstacles that you face with your friends which are surpassing your cultures, which is surpassing. So this is how strong friendships are built. And also you have to have an open mind that you have not already made the best friends you can. Like a lot of people would come on campus and be like, oh, I have 3 best friends, but they are at home. No, they are not. This whole world is full of friends, you just haven't met them yet. The thing is that when you first met your best friend, you weren't automatically best friends. You gave it time, and you gave it, like a lot of effort to build that relationship by doing different things together, by allowing them to come into your life and be a part of it. So you can honestly meet your best friend at any point in this life. Tomorrow you can walk into an experience and meet your best friend. So you need to have that openness to be able to talk to different people. And lastly, I would like to touch upon this whole concept of reaching out to strangers. So these were people who were my friends, right? In college, you are supposed to meet each other. You're supposed to socialize with each other. Everyone's in the same playing field. But when you go and approach people, especially say during COVID, or when you go out of college. So when I got a job in Chicago, so I'm talking about my senior year now, I did not know anyone in Chicago when I moved to Chicago. I did not have any, I had a few family friends who lived in the suburbs, but I did not have any close friends in Chicago. I did not have a job yet, but I just up and moved. And that's because the confidence that I got because of that was because I used to go on LinkedIn. through the last semester of my college and just send cold messages or contacts to connect, requests to alumni who were in the field that I was wanting to go to. And a lot of them, most of them replied to me and set up phone calls with me, not knowing me. And all we talked about was their day and what they did. I've never taken a marketing class in my life. And I ended up getting a job, and I completed my job experience in Chicago just by calling strangers and learning that they are so nice and kind to you. All you have to do is just that 20 seconds of courage. All you have to have is that 20 seconds of courage, and just great things will happen after that. So when I moved to Chicago as well, I was again in the same situation, bottom of the food chain, no friends. Again, have to redefine myself. Who are you? Where are you from? You have to do that all over again. I joined this, there are these online groups called meetup.com, right? So I would go to these social events. It sounds like a dating site. It's not a dating site. You would go to these social events where people would choose interests which were similar to yours, and they could be something like going to food festivals together. So there were these in Chicago. There are different neighborhoods, and there are different food festivals like Greek food festival, Italian food festival, all these different things that happen. So they first make you meet at a common place, make you socialize, and then go together to these experiences. And I found many friends through those experiences, and that has given me a lot of confidence. And I did choose to come back home and live at home and help students over here. But this entire experience through undergrad, through Chicago, has now transformed me into a completely different person. I can confidently walk into a room and make friends with strangers. That is the confidence I didn't have when I was when I was a freshman joining college. So this is the kind of experience that a US education can potentially give you. Your entire experience in the US can give you, because you have access to such great resources who are so diverse, from different cultures, from different backgrounds. So keep that in mind, and definitely try to consider the US as a destination for your education, abroad, if that is what you're planning to do. I know we are at 7:30, so if there are any last closing comments anyone would like to add, I would invite any panelists to say that. Otherwise, I'll just share our contact details and draw this webinar to a close. So anyone, if you want to add anything? No, everyone's good. Okay, I'm so sorry for waking you up so early and having you come over here. I know we had a little glitch about the time as well. I'm really sorry about that. But thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this webinar. I'm sure the students have gotten a great experience learning more about your experiences and hoping to experience that themselves one day. So I'll just quickly share the last closing slides. So stay connected. We are on all social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We have an app, as well as we are on WhatsApp. So EducationUSA India is the name of all of these handles. This is our contact details for all of the different centers. If you're in Kolkata, you can contact us from the Kolkata WhatsApp group, WhatsApp number, as well as the email ID. And if you have, I know a lot of you type in questions about studying in the US. This webinar is not particularly about those process related questions. So if you email me, I can tell you more about that on a different day. So yeah, we hope you consider the US in this International Education Week. And with that, I would like to say thank you to all the panelists and draw this webinar to a close. So everyone have a good night, and panelists have a good day. Thank you so much.
I'll add really quickly, even though our contact information wasn't on the last slide, I think it can speak for the rest of my wonderful panelists that we would love to assist you if you have a specific question for us or about one of our universities or experiences, or if you're curious about what it was like to be a Muslim student on campus, right? Maybe you want to speak to Samara about that. Like if there's a specific question, please, you'll be able to get our contact, and we would be more than happy to speak with you individually. So yeah, thanks again, and yeah, you will be. People want to know about India. I mean, it's this country that most Americans have never visited, but Bollywood is famous throughout all of America. Indian food is famous, though it's only really Punjabi food, unfortunately, that is popular or known here. But the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy, there's a lot of connection, and I think you'll find American students will be really over the moon to actually have as I said, a cultural ambassador to answer their questions and talk to about India. So anyway, that's what I just wanted to say, but please contact us if you have any questions at all, even if it's 5 months from now or a year from now.
Definitely. Okay. Thank you so much, David.
Take care, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.